Welcome, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. I am your host, Aeron Dellosa, and this is an Immigrant's Life podcast. An Immigrant's Life on all the social media where you can reach me and say what's up and hello. Or if you want to come on the podcast as a guest, or if you know someone that wants to come on the podcast as a guest, that's where you can reach me and send me your message. You can also email us at animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. Today is a very special episode, as you might have figured it out. It's our 200th episode. I cannot believe that the podcast reached 200 episodes. It's been a long run. It's been full of ups and downs, and it still brings me joy more often than not. So, as always, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for all the ones that listened, downloaded, likes my post on Instagram, shared it, anything. If you somehow interacted with the podcast somehow, thank you. I really appreciate it. Without you, this podcast would be nothing. And I really mean it. And by the way, let me just say that usually the introduction is well produced. You know, you won't usually hear me say and all that stuff. But I feel like since this is a 200 episode, I feel like I could be raw. I could, do or say whatever I want to say without being constricted into this script. Since, as you figured it out, I am the guest of the podcast. I thought about this a lot. I thought of opening it up more. Not that I don't, but I feel like, the podcast is usually about the guests. But this time, I want to tell my stories and more the ones that I haven't really had a chance to tell. And I was helped by the amazing psychotherapist and founder of Ikarus Mind Psychotherapy. And I'd love to call him my friend, Kiersty Xavier. I really appreciate her coming on and interviewing me and asking me questions, which most often than not, I kind of bomb. She didn't prepare me for the question, which I appreciate too, because that's my style. But that just shows that I'm not really good at thinking on my feet. I'm pretty okay with other things, but if you ask me a question, it was straight up like what she asked, I kind of struggled. So anyways, I hope you appreciate the answers, whatever I came up with. I did my best. And this just shows how amazing Kiersty is. I really, really appreciate her. And I appreciate you for being here as always. Also, during the episode and during this recording, I was actually thinking of discontinuing the podcast. I was going through a lot of personal stuff in the sense that I was so busy. As some of you might know, I cycle a lot. I coach basketball. I have other things that I enjoy doing. And I found that the podcast was taking so much time of me. I love doing it. I love recording. I love meeting people. It's the work after was the problem. So I really considered discontinuing it. But good news, for now at least, I am continuing the podcast. This won't be the last episode, so sit tight, enjoy, and I hope you still enjoy the stories that we are bringing to the world and amplifying. And again, thank you. And I usually have this elaborate in this episode. Let's talk about this episode, blah, blah, blah. But I don't really have anything. Like I said, this is a raw recording. But I could tell you that Kiersty and we talk about the ins and out of the podcast and some of the behind the scenes and a lot of my history and how I came to be me, my personality and whatever else. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope it achieves or reach your expectation. And again, I cannot thank you enough for being here. And I guess enough blabbering, let's get to the episode. So, as I always say, without further ado, let's get into the show.
It's such a privilege for me to be here. Aeron, Dellosa, the host of An Immigrant's Life. This is your 200th episode, and I'm so honored to be interviewing you. I'm your special host for today, Kiersty Xavier, and we recently were in touch, weren't we? It was the other way around.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, by the way, thank you for the introduction. Very awesome. When we're doing the podcast, I'm like, you know what? This seems pretty all right. Maybe I'll ask her to come on the podcast, and then maybe I'll ask her for the 200th episode. And I'm like, you know what? I hope she says yeah.
Is this a spontaneous decision?
I told you I should first ask question later.
Right.
I'm not like you, you're like calculated.
Calculated. So where does that come from? You're a risk taker. That sounds like.
I don't know. Maybe just concussion when I was young. I don't know. I always have this view in life, like, if it doesn't really going to affect my life so much, I'll just like, let's live life. Let's figure out what's going to happen and let's be spontaneous.
Well, I think that sounds like it's part of the fun for you, part of the excitement.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Like sometimes I like being lost when I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
I like, okay, of course it's frustrating when you're driving and then you can't find where you're going. But in the end, like, you know what? I always think of myself like, okay, well, I'm going to figure it out for sure. Also, it's fun. Now I know a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, it takes a kind of confidence to do that, right? To kind of just figure it out.
And I think that's confidence?
I think that, yeah. If you define confidence as the willingness to try. And the confidence, because I'm really curious if you felt you needed a level of confidence to start your own podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question, by the way.
Mm.
Yes. I remember the first time I recorded. Dude, my whole body was shaking.
Mm.
Like while I'm recording, well, before and while recording, my body was literally shaking.
Mm.
I don't remember feeling, oh, you know what? The first time I asked a girl to go out, I was shaking like that too. But not the whole time, it's
Right.
before. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's confidence. And I always remembered when I started the podcast, I always say, man, people, I'm going to have to reveal myself somehow and I'm going to speak. People will hear me. What are they going to say? This and that and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. What are you going to say? Sure, I don't care, Especially, I don't know, I guess a little bit, this sounds a bit bragging, but when I won the award,
Mm-hmm.
and they said they're going to put me on a national TV in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, people will see me, like maybe people will this, that, whatever. I was afraid a little bit, but then I was like, you know what, dude, who cares?
Mm.
They can say whatever they want to say. My life is going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I feel like for you to have that confidence, which if we define as that willingness to try new things, you must be listening to a certain voice in your head to be like, okay, do this. I got this, right? That internal narrative in your head. But it sounds like at your first episode, when you were recording your first episode, it wasn't just that internal voice that you had. You had multiple competing voices in your head, right? Like wondering, well, what is this person going to think? Or what are these people going to think? What are these people I don't even know going to think? So were you more self-conscious? Is that what it was?
Maybe, but I like what you said that like, oh, there's competing voices. They weren't really competing voices, but I had some. I was. I don't have like specific people, but here I think it's better if like it explain the way I grew up in the Philippines. In the Philippines, like everyone knows your business.
Mhm.
Like especially I grew up in a small town. I mean, everyone knows your business. It's just the community. It's just how it is. Everybody knows that Kiersty is dating this person, lives in here, goes to this school. She's a psychotherapist. Everything, you know. And I guess because of that, me thinking, oh, they know my past. They know the things that I've done. Maybe they'll say something about that. I think that's because of that. Is because I came from that background of people who always have a moment. People always has an opinion about what you're doing
Oh, right.
because it's a community. Like
Mhm.
community is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love community.
Mhm.
But what people doesn't talk about community is the negative side of community is people will know about you and people talk about you.
Right.
I don't care about like, oh, we're all positive and being nice and whatnot. I promise you, dude, they're gonna be talking about you behind your back. It
Yeah.
is what it is. That's life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you also just needed some thick skin to actually start your podcast. Like what, right? Like kind of being prepared of people talking about you to your face or not to your face behind your back. Uh, in some way, it sounds like your life experiences really did prepare you to kind of put yourself out there.
100% for sure. Thick skin, yeah. I mean, my God, I do have thick skin. You have to. The way
Yeah.
my life. Okay, I've said on the podcast many times that my mom worked in Hong Kong, right? My dad stayed with us. Well, tried to stay with us. But then I mentioned before that my dad was sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Hmm.
And so see, he couldn't take care of us because he was a young man, 3 kids. He was, not doesn't have a wife. He's not educated. He didn't have a job at all, like a regular job. So, he had, he just, he wasn't ready to be a dad, to be honest, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up living with my grandma for like, we'll stay there for maybe a year or two, and then my mom will come back for a month,
Hmm.
and then we're gonna live with my dad, where our actual house, and we were like a perfect family for a month. And then my dad, who's always been a charmer, to this day he's a charmer.
Hmm.
He will tell my mom, says, "Yo, I'm gonna take care of the kids," but I just couldn't. He just can't. He has demons,
Hmm.
you know. So we're gonna end up. We don't have food at the house. Like no food. There were times that we had to pick berries in outside
Hmm.
because dad is not home, and we're hungry. So we
Hmm.
had to like walk. When we were young, we had to walk to my grandma's to ask for food or whatever. And it was just continually like that. And people talk about us all the time, constantly. I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my God. Because, in the Philippines, if you're poor and then suddenly one of your family members went to a different country and working there, they automatically think, oh, they're rich now because they're making more
Yeah.
money.
Hmm.
But we didn't. We didn't have money because my dad was spending everything, you know?
Hmm.
And people talk about us all the time. Like, oh my God, why are you guys poor? It doesn't make sense. Your mom's in
Hmm.
Hong Kong, you're making money, this and that. I mean, constantly people talking about us. We used to like borrow. I hate this. I told my dad about this. I hated this. So we were young kids, and in the Philippines, there are these places called sari-sari store. It's just people has like in their house. There's like stores. It's like a bodega is in New York. They have like random food, random stuff in the store. But this is actually in the house. Anyways, we used to go to this old lady and borrow sardines.
Oh,
We will go and like, can you give us 2 cans of sardines and put it on list? And I hate it all the time. Like every time he says that, go, I die all the time. So we go and then we'll borrow, and you feel bad. You're a young kid, dude. You're borrowing like this should not be happening. You know.
yeah.
I love this old lady. She's probably dead now. I don't even actually know her. I just know her name because every time we borrow, her rule was you cannot pass 1,000 pesos. You pass 1,000 pesos, she will not lend you anything. She does not care if you die of starvation. She won't lend it to you, which I appreciate, to be honest, because she never break that rule, never.
Oh,
But anyways, the thing is, but when we go to that place, to that store, and the lady says, no, you're above your limit, we'll have to go back home, and dad will be pissed for sure. Like, oh, anything, you ask more, blah, 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 this and that. Oh, now you're dying. I'm dying because dad is going ballistic over here. And then he'll send us again, say, like, there's another store, go over there, that store. And that store is owned by this gentleman, and I hate this gentleman. He tortured us. He doesn't even lend us. Well, sometimes he does actually, but most of the time he won't. And then he'll just like berate us about things. Like, I don't understand. Your mom's in Hong Kong. You should have money, blah, blah, blah. But you never have money, blah, blah, blah. So we get berated by this person that doesn't even feed us. And then we have to go home and then tell dad, like, yo, dad, they didn't give us the sardines. And then he'll berate us again.
oh gosh.
So it's just like a constant of like people talks about that fact,
Yeah.
right? And I always remember about thick skin. I know it's a long story, but
It's your podcast.
yeah, well, I guess so. But I always remember this moment. So there's this guy that I grew up with. He's older. I'll say maybe like 10 years older. Yeah, I'll say maybe 8. Or no, I'm lying. Maybe like between 5 or 6, something like that. He was like a man when I was like in high school kind of deal, This guy drives a tricycle. You know what a tricycle is? Okay, a tricycle, for the people that doesn't know, is like a motorcycle with a sidecar. In the Philippines, they use it for transportation, for like whatever in the town. This guy drives a tricycle, and every time I see this guy, I hate it because I know he's gonna talk shit. But the thing is, he always let me ride for free. So it's a good thing too, right? Because he was a family friend. And every time he rides it, bro, this guy talks about my family all the time. Oh, your dad, this and that, whatever. I don't understand why your mom's letting that, this and that, whatever. I'm like, what the, like, why is he talking about? I'm like, I don't care. And I was scared because he's older and bigger, right? And I only remember this, it was a nighttime. I was going somewhere. I forgot where I was going with my cousins. So so my cousin sat on the sidecar. I sat behind him. And he was talking mad smack about my family again, right? And then there was I guess it was a voice that says to me like, bro, you need to step up, man. Again, he's older, bigger. If he decided to beat me up, it would happen, no problem. But I don't think he would, because I'm sure my cousins will come back and just kill him. I mean, literally kill him, right? And then he was talking mad smack about my family. And then I said, his name was Joel. I'm going to say his name. Fuck him anyway. And then I said, Joel, you know what? It's none of your business. Okay? It's none of your business. It's our lives. You live your life. That's it. Leave us alone. Something like that, And he shuts up. And I was like, yo, I can do that? I felt that this power, like I can do that. Like I can say things to people. Well, I would not say that way to other people, obviously, but I can actually say something to people. And I was like, yo. I was like, I changed. That moment, I remember that moment I changed. And in that, and many instances of like people just talking mad smack about our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not vengeful, but I remember.
You
I
do.
remember. I always remember, like, okay, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Someday, I don't know how, someday my life is going to be better. I don't know how. We're in poverty,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how, but I knew somehow it will flip. It has to flip. It doesn't make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but that's what I may believe. And I always say, if ever, when my life changes and my life gets better, fuck these people. I will never help them. Never. And thankfully, God or whatever, the universe, that changed my life.
Mm.
And every time I come home, or somebody sends a message to me and saying like, "Oh, this person needs help," or this and whatever, I always say the same thing: "Fuck them." I
Mm.
remember that moment when they were talking smack about me. I was hungry. They didn't do anything. So, so what? And through that, I had this thick skin that you're talking about. That just
Mm-hmm.
I had to. I had no choice, or else I don't know. I'll wallow in depression. I guess I don't know.
Mm. Wow. Aaron, no, that is a lot. That's like the first time. Is that the first time you really shared that?
I have shared it to people, not online.
Mm.
I've never shared it, but
Right.
I'm very, I'm very, very open with my experiences. To be
Mm-hmm.
honest,
Okay.
I'm not shy. Of course, there are parts that like we don't talk about that, but most of those things, because it makes me feel proud of what I came
Yeah.
from. Like,
Yes.
dude, I mean, there were times that like we are not eating at all.
Mm-hmm.
There were times that like grandma or dad, I'm hungry, and they'll say, drink water and go to bed. It'll pass. That's not a joke.
Yeah.
It has been said many times.
Right.
You know.
So I feel like maybe again the theme of this is people often judge the book by the cover with you, right? What they see, they just made up their own conclusions. And so I feel like, after all these years, like it really strikes me how much you still very vividly remember this. Like it stays with you, right? Like it's also where you were stepped out to advocate for yourself, or you willed yourself into, wanting that meaningful life change. You never gave up on yourself. Family still obviously means a lot to you, right? Community still means a lot to you. But that sounds like such a huge pivotal moment, right? And yeah, I definitely feel like you are always still ready to give other people a chance, wanting them to advocate for themselves. I feel like that's something that you hold really dear to you because you had to learn how to do that for yourself, defend for yourself.
Yeah. I, yeah, I guess so. I got that from my grandma and my
Mm.
grandpa on my mom's side. They were very generous. I mean, they're poor but generous.
Hmm.
Like literally, they don't have money and they'll find a way to share. And
Yeah.
they always taught us that you gotta share. You gotta help out people because what's the point of living
Yeah.
without sharing? And I want to share this story of my grandpa, rest in peace. They had a neighbor. Well, she's older now, but this happened when I think she was turning 18. And turning 18 in the Philippines as a woman is a very big thing. It's like the welcome to womanhood, right? And apparently one day she passed by my grandma's house and my grandpa called her and said, "Yo, I thought it's your birthday. We don't have a party. What's going on?" She was poor too.
Hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I think I'm gonna make a cake from sweet potato, because again, poor, you know."
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Okay, cool, whatever. We'll have a party."
Hmm.
The at the end of the day, she passed by again, and my grandpa's like, "Yo, what's going on? Where's
Hmm.
the sweet potato cake?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have money. My parents didn't have money, so we couldn't do anything." Oh, okay, cool. My grandpa went to my grandma and said, like, you better cook something.
Mm.
Make that sweet potato cake, and we're gonna have a party with this lady. And they did. They had a party with her. To this day, that lady tells that story. And before my grandma passed away, this lady lives like, I'd say like a block away, all right? Every day, every day, 365 days a year, this lady comes to my grandma's house to just kiss her hand or mano. It's like hold your hand and then you put it on your forehead. It's a show of respect in the Philippines. She'll do that, stay 5 minutes, and then she's gonna leave. Every day, she did not miss a day.
Mm.
You know, like I love that. And through that, I see it, and I just like, I have to do that. Like that's the right way, right? Like it's the best way. But also, I'm selfish too, because it feels good when you help.
That's yes. I totally get what you mean. Yeah, right. So, these stories stay with you. They're still really vivid, even as you recall them. I want to connect this to again your podcast, and just to reflect on like what actually inspired you to start it.
Another one. I've spoken about this on different podcasts, but I always like cut it short. But since this is my podcast, I'm gonna take my time.
I can give you another question too. You can
What do you,
choose.
what do you mean?
Well, okay. So I'll just give you all three.
Sure.
Okay. So it was what inspired you to start this podcast? How has it evolved since the first episode? Right. It's obviously lots of changes. And what were some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way?
Sure. Let's get the first one first. So the first one is this is an homage to my mom,
Oh.
the first ever immigrant in my family. I mean, my uncles traveled, but to me, my mom is the goat. Greatest of all time. So she is. The podcast is an homage to her because this lady, I love her to death, but she likes helping too. And she never stops helping, which annoys me all the time because sometimes she helps. I know they're not good people. She helps anyway. So because of that, people go to her house all the time, right? Sometimes they ask for money to borrow, but sometimes they just talk about they lament about their, the woes in life. And sometimes a lot of time I visit her, and most of the time there's people there, and they'll just tell us stories about their struggles. And every time it's a different person. And I was like, okay, cool. I love stories. It makes me so happy to hear amazing, happy stories and bad stories, whatever story. Anyway, so I start like listening to these stories, and then speaking of voice in the head, the voice in the head said, "You need to save this." And I was like, "Why?" In my head too. Like, I don't know, just save it. I don't know why, but the voice in the head said, "You gotta save these stories because these are important."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, all right, I'll do." And then so I start writing it. I start writing the stories. Then I decided, okay, I'm gonna write short stories collection, and then I'm gonna publish a book, which is someday, hopefully, maybe one day. I said, okay, I'm gonna write, I think 13 stories. I think I got to 8, and then I just got burnt out. Life happened. I forgot about it. I still have them, but so I start binding the story, and then I entitled the book "An Immigrant's Life."
Oh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, but then that didn't work out. During those time, I learned about podcasting. This is when podcasting was like, no one even knows what podcasting is. My friend spoke to me and said, it's like, "Oh, you know what a podcast is?" I'm like, "What is a podcast?" I'm like, so explain to me, and I said, "Oh, it's like a radio, but on the internet." And he said, "Yeah." I swear to God, the voice in my head came back and said, "You can do this."
Wow.
And I was like, maybe in my head. So I thought of it. I thought of it. But I was like, what am I gonna talk about? No one's gonna listen to about. I love sports, but who cares about me? I'm not an NBA player, you know. I was like, okay, we're not gonna do that. I could talk about news, but I was like, I find that boring. And then the voice in my head shows up again and say, remember that book? And I was like, oh shit.
Right. Wow.
That's it. Because I said, that's it. We're gonna do.
So maybe you should listen to his voice in your head more.
I do actually. I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Good.
do try. I do most of the time, to be honest. Sometimes I tell him to shut up, but but yeah, but no, but when he comes or she comes or whatever comes, I always listen. It's just like, okay, all right, I have to do that. I have no choice. But I couldn't continue because I was like, I have to travel. Like I can't meet people, and there's so much immigrants in the world. Like and I want it to be worldwide. I don't want just
Yeah.
North America. So, and then pandemic happened. And then Zoom got better. The technology caught up. And then I told myself, I have no choice now. Like, I gotta start this. And then actually, another one too, a friend started a YouTube video channel. And I saw him, and I'm competitive. And I saw him like, this guy can do it? I can do it too. And that was that. I just started the podcast and I was like, I don't know. Like, and then I was like, speaking of first episode, I booked another guest. This guy flaked on me, like
Wow.
just ghosted me, right? I was pissed. I'm like, come on, man. And you know what? The universe and the voice in the head shows up again. And it says, why don't you invite your first friend in Canada? And that's Faye McCullough Davis, the first guest on the podcast. She is my first ever friend in Canada.
Wow.
And she became the first episode. And I was like, yo, dude, this voice, he knows something, But so that's how I answered. Like, that's how I started the podcast. What's the second question?
What was the second question?
How did it
Oh,
evolve?
right. Yeah. Yeah. How did it evolve? Well, you know what I am hearing though? It's like this podcast journey is tied so much to your own personal journey, your own personal growth. Right?
100%.
Something
I'm
that's
selfish.
just personal and funny. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, how has it evolved? Right.
Before it was like when I was setting up questions, I found it boring because, well, eventually I found it boring. But it was like, hey, Kiersty, where are you from? And where you ever been? Being a Asian Canadian, have you ever been picked on like by the police because this and that, whatever? Like little silly little things. I mean, they're good questions, but I'm like, that's not my thing, So it evolved into like, I'm gonna invite Kiersty. She's a psychotherapist, and she's a child of an immigrant or immigrants. I'm like, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about her life, how she grew up, her background, if she allows to talk about it, and then how that helped her drive her to her passion and what she's doing now. And then most of the time, I just shoot shit, to be honest. I just like talking, So yeah, and then I just like conversation with people. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Some people are good conversationalists like you, and some people are just like, this person's boring.
Wow. Oh my God. You're not going to say that on here.
Some people are boring.
Okay.
I'm
okay.
sorry. I mean, okay, no.
So what do you have to do to
then-
bring it out of them? Bring out that I don't know, that spontaneity.
I think it's they'll say yes, okay, I'm coming on the podcast, and then they realize, oh, this is going to be on the internet, and then that's just boom, shell.
Okay.
And then I'll be like, okay, I dig and dig and dig, and I'm like, you're not helping me here,
Well, how can you help them open up, like come out of their shell?
Talk about what they like. It's not about me. As much as I talk about being selfish, the podcast is not about me. It's about the guest. Let's talk about, you ask them about, hey, you play bass? Tell me about bass. And they'll just, oh, you know what, dude, I'm so good at bass. Bah, 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 bah. And then from there, I'm like, oh, where did you learn? Or, from there, and then I'll just throw a question that I want to be answered that interests me, and boom, they'll, most often than not, they'll open up, hopefully. But sometimes they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, oh, like that's
Okay,
what I want to.
that was also me. No, but the thing is, I think it's like it's normal to be nervous a little bit. I think I definitely was nervous, but I wanted to step out of my comfort zone. I
Appreciate that.
think I think it's about like realizing you are exposing a part of yourself, you are revealing a part of yourself, and that can feel vulnerable. But it's also because no matter how honest you are, it's only a slice of the pie. Like it's only just a slice of who you are, right? And then other people can think sort of things. They have their own perception. They can make up their mind, and you obviously want to give like you just can't share everything about you in one moment.
Of course,
And so
100%.
it's like, yeah, I think it's normal to be more self-conscious about that, right?
No, of course. And at the beginning, I was like, come on, dude, like just speak, But then as I gained experience and I start being more empathetic and like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I mean, fine, okay, cool. You don't want to share, let's move on, kind of deal. And again, like I'll never force a guest to answer a question that they don't want to ask. As you know, one of my thing before we record, I always say like, hey, if there's a topic or a question you don't want to ask, we're gonna move on. Just tell me, I don't want to push that. There's. Oh, also, I did some like how to be a good interviewer before I started the podcast. And they're like, oh, you have to do this, that, and whatever. And one of the things they say was, if you want to know what you're trying to know, you have to like ask small questions that will lead to that. But I was like, I don't like that because it's deceiving. If the person doesn't want to open about the topic, I'm never going to force a person. I have to protect the guest always. That's my rule. Like I will never, ever put a guest on a bad situation. There are many times that guests are like, don't include this. And before the person says it, I know already. Like I remember one of the guests, she started talking about there was a divorce in the family. The moment she said it, I knew I was going to take it out.
Oh.
And then the next day she messaged me, oh, can you take that out? And I was like, I got you, homie.
No.
I'm like, don't worry, I got you. I knew it. It was just like, you start being comfortable, you say things, and you're like, oh, this is recorded.
I
But yeah.
think you inspire people because you also give them the courage just by your example, just through your example of just speaking so freely and honestly.
I don't know about inspire. People says this all the time. Like, I don't know about inspiring people. I just talk. Like, I don't know. I mean,
what was the
if they
goal?
do, I guess it's good. But I'm just talking.
Okay. Well, then how do you actually feel that the podcast has impacted your listeners?
How do I think that I don't know. I don't think about that. That's not my problem. That's their problem, not mine.
Okay.
It's just like, but I love when a guest says, oh, I'm planning to do this. And then they'll message me and say, dude, I did it. And I'm like, let's go. I get so happy when they do the things that they said. Like I had a former guest, who became my friend, Jet Lab. He told me he wanted to be an artist for a comic book. He made it happen.
Oh.
And the comic book was a comic book of a former guest. And they didn't know each other. They collabed through the podcast. Little things like that. That makes me so happy. How it impacted them, that's not my problem. You do you. I'm happy. Just tell me that story because I'm all about the story. I'm just happy that you achieved something. It makes me really happy. But yeah, I don't think I'm not that smart. I just like, all right, cool. I got voices in my head that I'm talking to me.
So, okay. So what do you think you've learned then? I know you can't really speak for your audience, but what have you learned?
What
What have
have I
you
learned?
learned from all these people you've interviewed, from their stories, from collecting these stories?
I guess empathy. More
Ah,
empathy. More
okay.
empathy to people. Yeah. Like we are
Mm,
talking about earlier, you're saying like, oh, how about people they don't want to open up?
hmm hmm
Bro, I would back then I would have pushed you until you say
hmm
something. That also, if I don't know, I can't go deep on this question actually. I just because I don't think about those things, like what I've learned.
Well, that's
What I've learned,
why.
there are cool people all over the world. That's one thing, I guess. Uh, we're all the same. I don't care if you're black or you're Filipino, whatever you are. In the end, all we want is to be loved, eat food, share that food, and then love someone.
Okay, well, see, that's worth summarizing, right? Like that's how you summarize the impact on you and your own growth, right? Recognizing, uh, what does that label even mean, right? Immigrant, non-immigrant, the skin color, all of that stuff. When in the end, maybe what you've really learned is, well, yeah, like all of our stories are important, and they all have very similar themes about wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen. Yeah. So for you, I mean, looking forward, what are your goals for the next 200 episodes?
I don't know, dude. To be honest, I'm getting tired of the podcast. I'm not gonna
So,
lie.
but maybe that's why you got to think, be forward thinking, actually think about impact, growth, right? Like what are, if you don't recognize what you're learning, it might seem pointless moving forward then, right? If it just seems like the same old. Like progress isn't, it's not just repeating the same thing.
I'm always like that. Every episode, I was like, "What's the point?" To be honest, from the first episode, I said, "What's the point?" And then I'll hit a high and then go back down again. You know, I just I do enjoy it. I love it. I love it. This right here, this is the shit. I love this conversation. But thinking about the impact, thinking about how it's affecting me, it's taking my time. That's for sure. It's
Yeah,
work.
this is, yeah, it's not your day job.
It's not my day job, obviously, and I don't really think about my podcast, to be honest.
Oh,
I
well,
don't know why.
maybe this is the turning point, Aaron. Maybe this is where you start thinking about it. You have come all this way. You have all this work, to show for, and yeah, well, what is a purpose? The big question, well, what now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a Western thinking. That like, what now? What's next? Because in Filipino culture, I am Canadian, but I'm also Filipino. Is we have this thing called bahalana. It
Hmm
means bathalana. It means let it, give it to God. Let God
hmm
decide.
hmm
Not that you don't care. It's
hmm
just let's see what happens. You know. Do I think about the podcast? Yeah, I do think about the podcast. I do, not as often as like how can I grow my podcast? That's kind of cringy for me, to be honest. I just want to talk to cool people, people that I find cool, like you. Other than that, I don't care if the. I mean, it would be amazing if it grows like Joe Rogan, but I mean, not really. I'm cool, you know.
Mm.
If I impact one person, I'm good. That's all I care about. I love when like people reach out and say, "Hey, oh, your podcast is cool, man," or
hmm
whatever you're working like, and this person never talked to me ever, and then suddenly
mm
they'll reach out. I have a listener. I love her to death. She listens through YouTube and she comments every day. I have never spoken to this person other than thank you for your support. She never reach out. She never say nothing, but every week she comments, right? Like that. She makes me happy. Helen or Laura, she has two names. And I'm like, first shout out to her. It's just like, it means so much when somebody reaches out and say, hey, this and that. And sometimes, obviously, people are like, oh, you're inspiring. And I'm like, cool.
hmm Well, I think it takes that dedication, right? Like, I think what I was trying to get at is growth. well, this is where I'm not trying to define growth by a number, right? We're not just talking about statistics here. How do you want to grow in the next quarter? Yada, yada, yada. It's not that. But this is like personal growth. You can talk about spiritual growth. I'm not asking you to quantify it, right? So it's
Okay.
not really, I'm not trying to look at it that way. Oh, my growth is to be like have this many followers by this number. It's not about that. You know that.
Yeah.
I'm not like that.
So you're talking about like, okay, I'm
Because
sorry, I misunderstood.
this was a personal endeavor to begin.
100%. Yeah. It's
So it's
always
more just
been.
like, so yeah, it's the whole what now doesn't have to be again. It's not through the lens of like hustle culture or anything like that, right? You love doing what you love doing, and it's just kind of just understanding, well, why is that? And reminding yourself of that. If it is as easy as reminding yourself of it, so kind of going back to the love of doing things, right? If this episode helps solidify that and clarify that for you, oh yeah, this is what it was all about.
Oh
Going
yeah. Oh,
you know.
that never changes. It's always about sharing stories
Hmm.
of immigrants or children of immigrants or how immigration affects people.
Hmm.
That it has never changed. I always think about that. That is the core value of the podcast. It's like Superman never kills someone. That is my core. It does. It will not. It will never change. You
Hmm.
know, as a growth wise in I don't know, like I don't know, dude. I don't even think about that to be honest. I don't know if I'm incapable of thinking of it or I just don't
Mm.
want to. But I don't know. I'll ask someone, I guess. I don't know. But I literally like, okay, I spoke to Rogan, and Rogan is one of my like, not idol, but like I look up to. Like, he started his podcast just really talking to people for hours and hours and hours and then he
Hmm.
changed it to like a little bit some science, like scientists and whatever. And I was like, that's what I like. That's what I want to do. And I don't know if it growth that you're talking about comes from that. That's cool. But other than that, I don't see anything else. I don't know. Like I'm sure there is, but I'm like I just love talking to people. What else
Hmm.
do you want me to do?
Okay, so does that mean you're going to keep continuing?
I'm thinking about it hard, real hard.
Hmm.
So this could be the last episode of the
What?
podcast because I'm really thinking hard about the
Mm.
podcast because it's been it's almost 5 years the
Oh
podcast.
wow.
It's
Wow.
October. Yeah, it's almost 5 years. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think the struggle that you're thinking about is not that the meaning of exchanging stories and listening to stories and creating space for stories diminishes. I think as you said, that's always first and foremost. You'll never lose that purpose, but it's all the other stuff that comes with it. For other
Yeah.
people who just kind of throw around, oh yeah, it'd be so great to start a podcast. It's like, yeah, but it also takes so much work and it takes so much time. There's like adulting to do, right? There's other things to do.
Yeah.
And so of course we all want to be able to handle and balance a passion project, but
Yeah.
even a passion project takes so much work.
It takes a lot of work.
So is that something
People
like, yeah?
people talk about like, oh, I'm gonna start out whatever. I'm like, bro, do you know how hard it is to start
Hmm.
something like a podcast? I will edit this episode for sure. I will create art, especially if you care. I don't know for the people that listening. If you haven't followed my Instagram account, I make every post like a singular. I have never copied a single post at the same time. Like it's always different every post. Like a post of,
Yes. Yeah. I
and
love
that
it. It is
takes
your,
work.
yeah, I love it.
And unfortunately, I care so much that I'm like, sometimes I swear to God, sometimes I'm like working on an art and I'm like, who cares? Why do you care about? I mean, a line. Okay, I'm gonna put this word on the left, just a tad left. That means so much. I will not stop till like, okay, this is good, this is perfect, I'm happy, whatever.
Mm.
You know, like it means so much, and that's why it takes so much time. Is because like I care about the details.
Hmm.
I don't care
Yeah.
if people don't care. I care. the voice in my head cares because
Yeah.
they'll say, "You didn't put your work, dude. Like you just
Mhm.
blah."
Yeah. Well,
You
that's the
know?
thing. That maybe the meaning from this is just is that you care, that you come out of each episode. It's a work of your art in a collaboration with these, guests that come on. Um, but you're the one that kind of neatly wraps it up in a creative bow, right? And if as long as you put that stamp of approval, that as long as you say, this is what I cared about, and this is what I feel good about, right? That's that personal value, right? That no one can take away from you. Like you define that for yourself.
No one's. That's one thing I'm like always. I always pride myself. Like no one can take away. I don't copy. I don't nothing. I have my own style. That's my
Hmm.
style. The
Yeah.
colorful. Like if you go on Instagram, it's very colorful. Every guest has their own
Hmm.
theme, looks, the
Yeah.
words, everything, and it takes so much time because I care so much. And I like to think once in a while I'm an artist. It's one of my form of art, but it's just again like the podcast takes so much time. I have a family. I have kids. I have to take care of. I love cycling. You
Yeah,
know,
you do.
I just cycled actually today before we recorded. I cycled for 133 kilometers.
Wow.
I also coach, a volunteer coach for basketball. Like a lot of things like that. I used to make recycled paper. I haven't done it in a while.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
don't want to.
creative. Yeah, no, that,
Yeah, I'm pretty creative. That I am
hmm
creative.
hmm
Yeah.
Right. Again, I think it just goes back to the dedication to honing in on those skills, right? And just like, yeah, your talent still has to be cultivated, right? It still has to be worked on, refined.
Yeah, I guess. You're right. I don't know, dude. I'm like, I have many talents, as you call it, talent. But I'm like, anyways, we're going on a tangent here. Let's
I know.
bring us back.
Okay. I also just want to just keep track of time. I'm going to end with a fun question because I feel like, we just need to spruce this up because you're going to have a lot of fun editing this. I'm wondering we should have like a post 200 episode thoughts on recording your 200th episode because but I want to make it fun as well.
Yeah.
Has anyone asked you this? If you could interview anyone living or dead, who would it be and why?
No one has ever asked me that. Who would
Okay,
be
good.
the first person or being was Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, but not religious. But it would be cool to talk about Jesus, to talk to Jesus.
What would you want to ask him?
I'm like, dude, you're not God, are you? Like, I mean, you're cool, but you
Is
know
that
what I
a
mean?
question or an accusation?
No, that's what I want to ask him. But no, I mean, I grew up religious.
Mm-hmm,
I grew
mm-hmm.
up Catholic. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
Catholic.
Yeah.
But, and I find Jesus cool, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, Jesus cool, but, you know, he's not that dude. But yeah, to answer the question, Jesus, probably. Or Che Guevara would be nice too.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say multiple guys or just one person?
I think so. Yes, saying who it is, but like wanting to know what you'd want to hear from them or what you'd want to ask them. That's more interesting for me.
Kobe Bryant.
Mm. Okay,
But
so right, so the value of that person increases when they're no longer here.
no, before he
Hmm.
died, it
Huh?
was the funny thing was I hated Kobe. I
Okay.
hated him because he played for the Lakers. I hate the Lakers,
Hmm.
and I saw his uh, documentary, and then I started like appreciating him.
Hmm.
And then obviously he passed away. But anyways, Kobe would be one.
Well, okay, that's okay. No, I think you got two good ones. I think what you just said is a good way to kind of round off this episode,
Hmm.
right? When you really get to know someone, when you hear their story, when you heard Kobe's story, that changed things for you, right? This is, I think, the power of storytelling, the power of stories when we hold on to our assumptions that we don't even realize. Maybe they're racist, maybe they're biased, um, they're judgmental. And that person it's basically you against the other, right? They're nothing to you. They're impersonal to you, right? You cannot see past that facade that you've created, that you've projected onto them. But the power of stories, what your work is doing, the storytelling is giving voice to that person in first person and hearing truly what their story is. Even if it is only capturing a glimpse of who they are, it can change so much. It can just be so humanizing, right? To really just affirming how we are all the same at our core, right? We all want to be loved and to give love. And as you just said, to eat food, share food, right? And I think that's what creates, that's the meaning there, right? If we can make the world truly a more harmonious place, right?
And see, this is what I mean. Like, this shows how smart you are. And I'm like,
Stop.
this is what I'm trying to say. But then she said it. I'm like, in my head, it's like, it's not, it's like a bunch of words, like all mixed up. And you're like, this is it. And I'm like, this is it right there, right? That's what I want to say.
That's okay. I need it is for the suspense. I just had to leave it till the end, just end with that.
Anyways, so are we done?
I don't know. You tell me. You get the last word. You get the last word, Aeron. If this was seriously the last episode, what do you want to say?
I want to say, obviously, thank you to you for coming on the podcast and, being quote unquote friend.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, thank you to you, to all the people that listens, to all the guests that bounce on me, to all the guests that want to be guests, try to be guests, and just people that reach out or listen, even if they didn't reach out and still support the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. It's just, you guys changed my life, to be honest, like for the better, because I've learned so much in like empathy and just learning that different culture, different ways of people thinking, different perspective. I'd say that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
Well, I feel that. I feel that you're grateful. Yeah.
I'd like to think so. Again, so you know how I usually end the episode? You got to end it like that.
Okay, I can't get over how we ended our last podcast because I was like, oh wait, can we just redo that? You're like, no.
I love that.
I
I
know.
love that ending.
I know. Oh my God, I'm gonna post that. I'm gonna post that clip. I actually did. I'm gonna post that clip. It was so funny. No, it has to be original. You're just gonna break from the whole. It's your 200th episode. You do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, thank you for coming on. I mean, it was amazing. Thank you for the questions that no one has ever asked me, and allowing me to share it and giving me the courage to say it.
That's a lot of courage. I was like, whoa.
I know.
It's getting spicy.
I gotta say it. It makes it.
Yeah.
I feel like, I think it's not fair for the guest that they come on, they share their stories, and then I'm like, yeah, don't talk about me. No one asked, and that's okay. Because they expect to be interviewed. But I feel like I could share that. Those stories that I've shared, I can share those ones, and I will be okay.
Well, Aeron, you've left us on a cliffhanger. I feel like I have no idea if we're going to expect another episode, but I think what's clear is you're just going to go with the flow, and you're enjoying the ride, and I think that's what we can all be reminded of.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.
Again, Kiersty, thank you for coming on the podcast and interviewing me. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aeron Dellosa for An Immigrant's Life. I guess I'll see you guys later.